Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you. And thank everyone for actually tuning in and spending a little bit of your time this afternoon getting all of this incredible information about how we can be better, live better, and truly enjoy the lives that we have. So as Joe said, my name is Marlon Rison, also known as Plant-Based G on Instagram. You can follow me at plantbasedg.life. I'm also at plantbasedg.life on Facebook. And so I'm extremely excited to have the opportunity to talk to you about, or better yet, tell you my testimony as far as how the foods that I eat truly changed my life and made me and helped me live the best life that I possibly can. I actually, just to give you a little bit of current information, I actually transitioned into being vegan 3 years ago. And when I tell you it was the absolute best thing that I did for myself, hands down, I've never done anything that has affected me and those around me greater or in a better fashion than this transition. And just to let you know, as far as the transition went for me, as Joe mentioned, it wasn't about weight loss. It wasn't about anything superficial in terms of what I was trying to do on the outside. It had a lot more to do with how I was trying to be a better person internally. That way I could truly live and enjoy each and every day to the fullest of my ability. And so I've always been a reasonably healthy guy. I was a bigger guy, but always healthy, always, ate fairly well. But I knew as I got older, there were levels to this. And so for me, I've always wanted to be better each and every day of my life. And so I ran across a documentary that I'll speak to you a little bit further about. And since then, just to give you a little bit of a tidbit of, I know one thing that I know people enjoy listening to is me talking about the weight loss. And I've actually lost over 150 pounds in this journey. So I know as you look at me and you see it, it's like, how can this guy weigh 150 pounds more? Well, I actually did. Now I weighed close to 380 pounds at my heaviest. And now I'd say as far as my fighting weight goes, my day in, day out, pretty much I stay around 225. And so for me, this journey has been incredible. So getting into how we can truly live the best life that we can via our foods. First, I think we need to understand more about our mindset as far as food goes. And like I said, I want to take you through my journey because my journey is a true testimony for how changing the way that we eat can truly make us happier, better individuals. So as a kid, I grew up in South Texas. For anyone that's familiar with the South Texas region, Tex-Mex, seafood, tons of cattle, all types of food options was what I grew up around. So I grew up eating everything from fried fish to hamburgers to steaks to enchiladas, tacos, everything that you can imagine. That's what I grew up eating. And I grew up in a loving household, both parents, extremely loving, but more importantly, as we talk about food and affecting, our lives and the way that we live, my parents grew up in a situation where they didn't have access to as much food as they would have liked. So there was always, almost, practically fights at the dinner table between my parents and their siblings as far as being able to eat as much as you wanted. So my parents made it a point that my sister and myself would never go through that. She and I would never go through that. So when I tell you we had an abundance of food, we had food for days. When I say days, we had stuff in the pantry. We had, Reese's, Snickers, all types of Wolf brand chili, Frito pies, everything that you can imagine we had. And so my parents wanted to make certain that we were in an environment that not only from a financial standpoint was healthy and effective, but also they wanted to make sure that we had as much food as possible. So I grew up literally with access to anything and everything I could get my hands on. So I was making me Frito pies, chili dogs, all of those things as I grew up. And I was happy. At least I thought I was happy. I was happy because I had access to all of these things. But now that I'm older and I look back at it, there were so many other little things that came into play that really adversely affected, the way that I could have been or the way that I was growing up during those adolescent years. So I grew up not only with tons of food, access to everything, but I also had a lot of ailments that I thought were just, things that happened. My parents thought so too. It's stuff that's passed down from our DNA. It's what happens to us. So I grew up with all type of upper respiratory issues. So I had asthma. I had, bronchial issues. I had pneumonia when I was young. I had issues as far as my joints went, inflammation. All of those things were things I grew up with. But again, we just thought those were processes that you go through and such is life. So again, it's good to have a foundation as to how we look at food. So for me, I grew up thinking that in order to be happy, you had to have everything you could possibly get your hands on. So I was eating tons of food all throughout my adolescent years, well into my 20s and my 30s. And that's when I got up to that 370, 380 pound range. But let me explain something to you though. As far as me being that big, I wasn't that big, but out of shape necessarily. I was also a power lifter too. So I was lifting extreme amounts of weights, pushing vehicles around, just crazy, intense, insane. My mindset was like, yo, I could run through anything. I could demolish everything. I'm eating all of these crazy items. And that's pretty much when I said, okay, all of this is fun and interesting, but I think I had reached a point where as I got older, I said, things have to change. My life is not going to continue to be this world's strongest man episode where I'm lifting up incredible things for no reason except to make myself feel good. So I was getting to a point where I said, okay, I've truly got to look at not only, things that take place as we get older as far as our lives go, but more importantly, I've got to look at all of the things that I'm putting inside my body. And so it wasn't just the food that I looked at. I had to also look at the people who I'm around, the information that I'm getting in. I had reached a point in my life where I said, I've got to go in a direction or with the trajectory that's going to truly allow me to live the best life that I possibly can. So fast forward to where we're at today. And so I'm going to take you into a few years ago. It's funny, one afternoon, sitting around, a friend of mine was thinking about what to watch on TV, Netflix, and What the Health comes on. If you haven't seen that documentary, I encourage you to watch it. So I'm watching What the Health, and there were so many things that resonated with me about how to better take care of myself. It had little to do with weight loss. It had little to do with anything else except for you are truly responsible for how you take care of your health. And so as I jumped off into the transition into becoming a vegan, I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to be, healthier, I'm going to probably drop a few pounds. I expected that because I was going to eliminate a lot of the things that I really didn't need in my life, including the processed foods. And so I was like, I know I'm truly going to get healthier, but the amazing part was the transformation that took place internally. So as I'm losing weight and as I'm, growing in terms of how I'm living, how I'm looking at life, there was a point where I said, you know what? I'm feeling different. And by that, I'm saying, everything that I was around, everything that I was looking at, everything that I was experiencing, I felt it at a much greater depth. I was appreciating things at a much deeper level. I was wanting to do more for people. I was wanting to help people. And so magically, all of these things started happening. All of these things started happening to me. And a lot of that comes from the foods that I was putting in my body. One thing that I can tell you, and then we're going to fast forward and kind of get to the foods that we should eat to make us feel better and truly live our better lives. But for me, I became a much more compassionate individual. When I say much more, it's funny because, friends of mine and people that knew me as the, gregarious, weightlifting man that was pushing trucks and doing all of that stuff, they've seen me now and they're like, man, I know you're the same Marlon, you got that passion, you got that energy, but the life that's in you, the positivity that I feel from you, the love that you project to each and every one around you, I've never experienced that before. So for me, foods truly changed the way that I live, the way that I love, and the way that I accept and project happiness around any and everyone. So for me, it absolutely was about the foods that I ate that made me a happier individual that allowed me to live the best life that I possibly can. And there's a reason to that. There's actually research that shows that. One thing people don't know and people don't realize is 90% of the serotonin receptors reside in your gut. So think about that for a second. 90% of those things, those receptors, those mechanisms that affect the way that we feel, the way that our mood is going to be, the anxiousness, the depression, all of those things, 90% of those receptors reside in our gut. So what does that tell you? I know what it tells me. What it tells me is there's a lot that's taking place in my stomach that I need to be more cognizant about. Not only in terms of the obvious things as far as the foods that we eat, but the types of foods that we eat. The types of foods that actually give us life. The types of foods that actually give us happiness. The types of foods that actually stimulate all of those things that we seek, sometimes in outside resources, we can actually find that in our foods. And so one thing that I want you to look at, and this is where, and I actually do consultations, helping people out as far as the transition goes with getting in good foods and good things into your body. There's certain things that we have to look at in specific. And I know Joe had mentioned, the fact that, I'm vegan, and I try to make sure that I convey to people that although I am vegan, my goal, my mission, is to offer you as much information as possible to elevate the way that you're living. A lot of that is going to obviously play a role as far as what we're eating in terms of the fruits, vegetables, nuts, etc. But my goal is to get you to just consider it. With every meal that you're eating, I want you to consider what you're putting into your body. And so first and foremost, what I want to tell you as far as living the best life that you can via the foods that you eat, you got to make sure that you get in as many fruits, vegetables, nuts, things that are grown as possible. You want to make sure that you're consuming as much life as possible. And so I want you to consider this. I had this conversation with a good friend of mine, and we were talking about celebrations. We were talking about birthday parties. We were talking about New Year's Eve. We were talking about weddings. We were talking about all of the different things that we have that we celebrate. And I said, hey, let me ask you a question. So whenever you're having these celebrations and it's about happiness, it's about joy, what do you typically eat? And so he went through a list of things, everything from ribs to chicken, all of these different things that he's consuming. So I said, let me understand this. Let me get this right. So at a situation, I use situation a lot. So at a situation where you all are celebrating someone's liveliness, some event, you all would rather choose celebrating something with dead items versus utilizing live items to uplift. And he was like, I think I get where you're coming from. What do you mean? I said, so basically what I'm saying is you're taking dead animals and you're utilizing dead animals in the celebration of liveliness, of life, of happiness. And so for him, the light bulb went off. He said, you know what, you make a great point. I was like, doesn't it make more sense to have color, to have life, to have vibrance for all of those things that we're celebrating? So he laughed. He said, so basically what you're saying is we can roast veggies. I said, exactly. You can roast your vegetables. You can have an array of fruits, all types of things that people truly do enjoy, but why don't you celebrate life with life? And so I give you that example to say that as we think about the things that we're putting in our body, we have to think to ourselves, what are the things that I can consume that will make me live and feel happier each and every day of my life? And so for me, I always look at those things that I wouldn't mind watching during the growth process, those things that I enjoy going and picking and looking at, those things that provide me with the color, the livelihood, all of those things are going to be the foods that we need to be eating. So whenever you go into a grocery store, and I like to tell people this as far as starting to think about what are those things that can truly help me live the best life that I possibly can. Starts off with the grocery store, the place that most of us get most of our foods. What you want to look at is those areas that are on the outside of that inner city area. And so I tell people, I'm like, you know how a lot of people, if they live in the city, they enjoy going to the outskirts because you're able to breathe. It's a lot more life. It's a lot less of the commercialism and the things that, we probably have to deal with, but we're truly here to enjoy the beauty of life and all the space that's available to us. Same thing goes when you go in the grocery store. You want to spend less time in the middle aisles, more time on the outskirts. And the reason why you want to stay on the outskirts is because that's where most of the things that we consume are going to be grown. So looking at all of your vegetables, you want to spend a majority of your time truly going through that vegetable aisle, that produce area. You want to spend time looking and learning about all of the new things that you can experience, all of the things that can actually help you to live the best and the highest quality life that you possibly can. And so it's a mindset thing. It's an absolute mindset thing. And so that's why I mentioned the grocery store. You know, there are times where we're hungry and we think we need to get something to eat because this is what our body's calling for. No, our body's calling for nutrients and things that we actually could utilize to live the best life that we can. So with that, first and foremost, I want to tell you, think about the places that you go into, namely with the grocery store. You want to think about, what are the things that I'm going in here to buy to actually help me live the best life that I possibly can? So think about that when you go in the grocery store. One step that's even more important than that is, what are the things that I need to have within immediate reach that will help me live the best life that I possibly can? And so with that, we're talking about your pantry. We're talking about your vehicle. We're talking about your desk at the office. What are those things that are within immediate reach that we know we need to have access to items that will help us live the best life that we can, versus curing or trying to appease some immediate need that we're having for a variety of reasons? We want to make sure that we put ourselves in responsible positions to put the food in our body that we need in order to truly be and uplift the way that we want to. So you want to think about, again, your work area. You want to think about your pantry. You want to think about your vehicle. And again, it goes back to the grocery store and the choices that we make as far as the foods that we put into our body. And so I like to mention that just to give you a couple of ideas as far as the way that we need to think in terms of what we put into our body. But a lot of people want me to talk about, what are the things that I do specifically? What do I do specifically that make me happy? What are the things that I do specifically that allow me to go out and truly be the best person I can be from a physical standpoint, from a mental standpoint, from an emotional standpoint? So let me give you a breakdown of what my day is typically like to truly live the best way that I possibly can. So in the mornings, first and foremost, I'm a big believer in the first meal that we should consume should be a raw meal. When I say raw, obviously I'm talking about those items that aren't cooked. So for me, I make certain that the first meal of the day that I consume is going to be something with fruit, something with nuts, something with raw vegetables. That could be anything from a smoothie. It could be some type of bowl that you end up making using a food processor, or you can eat things in their raw state. Sometimes what I'll do is get a handful of different fruits, get some strawberries, get some blueberries, get some grapes, eat all of those items along with some cashews. Other times I may go the route of making me a smoothie, where I'll take in a variety of raw items. But key, first and foremost, I want to make sure the first meal that I consume, the absolute first meal that I consume for that day, is the best meal that I consume. There is no doubt in my mind, when I have that smoothie, when I have that handful of grapes and nuts and whatnot, I have absolutely no doubt in my mind that I'm starting off my day the best way possible with the things that I put inside of myself. Another thing that you want to consider is, our bodies naturally are made to consume products in their raw state first and foremost. That's what we want to do first and foremost, is consume all of those things that are going to be in the raw state. So that's why for me, first meal of the day, I'm going to make certain that it's going to be raw. That way my body doesn't have to adjust to the heated elements, and it can pull each and every nutrient possible out of that. And for me, that makes my day, when I tell you it illuminates everything, when I tell you I feel like I'm glowing whenever I walk out the door, when I tell you my energy levels are at their best, even just the way that I look at my skin, the way that I feel, the way that I walk and talk, each and every day, starting off with a meal like that, I always feel like I'm starting off at least on level 10. So that's the first thing that I make sure I do. Second and most importantly, because people say, okay, what is that second meal? Let's get to that. Second and most importantly, you need to make certain that you're consuming high amounts of water. So after I consume that first raw meal, for me, it's all about the water consumption. It's all about making certain that I don't put myself in a state of dehydration. I'm making sure that I put myself in a well-hydrated, well-watered state to where my body can operate, it can feel at its pinnacle level. Because one thing people don't realize when it comes to hunger is, a lot of times when we're hungry, we're really dehydrated. So secondly, the Second thing that I think about most importantly is my water consumption. So before you get to that second meal, you got to make sure you're thinking about what are you consuming? How much water are you consuming? For me, on a daily basis, I probably get in anywhere between 1 gallon and 1.5 gallons at a minimum. It's primary. You got to do that in order for your body to work and operate at its most effective level. Now, as far as the remainder of the meals that go out through the day with me, I'll eat a variety of things, but also I've gotten better with understanding truly what my body needs in order to be happy and live the best life that I possibly can. So with that, what I'm telling you is when I say never, I never go periods throughout the day where I'm going to be hungry and uncomfortable. I never do that. I always allow myself to eat what my body is truly asking for and what it needs. Because if you're like me, whenever you're full and you got something good in your belly, you're happy. So that's the way that I am. So for the remainder of my day, my primary focus is making sure that I've got good foods that are accessible to me, good healthy vegetables, fruit, nuts, all of those things that I truly love, that I know make me feel great. I make sure that they're accessible. That's the most important thing that you have to consider, because all of us fall into that trap where we're starving. I need something to eat. What's the closest thing to me? A vending machine. You and I both know when it comes to a vending machine, most of that stuff in there is garbage, because it's got to sit in there for days, months at a time sometimes. So I make certain that I don't put myself in a position where I have to sacrifice my health and in turn my happiness by getting something that I know my body doesn't need. So for me, as far as the remainder of my day, it's all about making certain that I put myself in a position for success, which puts me in a position for happiness. So make certain that you keep that in mind as far as how you live, how you do each and every day. You want to make sure that first and foremost, you decide that I truly deserve the happiness, the health, all of those things. I deserve that. That's the first thing that you have to do. That was the first thing that I did. When I made that change, I said, you deserve this. You deserve to be happy. You deserve to have the highest quality of life you can possibly can. That's the first thing you have to do. Secondly, I mentioned this earlier, clean out all the garbage out of your pantry. Clean out all the nonsense out of your refrigerator that you know is not going to uplift your life. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. Go ahead and get rid of it. Give it to some other people. Get that stuff out. Don't have that within arm's reach. If it's within arm's reach, you're probably going to consume it, and you could potentially sacrifice your health and your happiness. And then lastly, have a plan. You got to have a plan. You got to have a plan as far as how I'm going to go throughout my day. What am I going to do first and foremost? And we talked about that. Consume that raw smoothie, consume something good and healthy. What am I going to do throughout each and every day? As you have that plan, as you live that plan, and as your body truly accepts that plan, I promise you, you will each and every day, you will be happier, you will be better than you've ever done before. So as you think about food, make sure that you consume life. And there's a lot of life in the fruits and vegetables that we have out there. Consume life, make it as colorful, make it as vibrant as you possibly can. And like I said, use foods to truly utilize and live the best life that you possibly can.
Wow. Thank you so much, Marlon. I am just like listening to you speak, and I'm reading the comments, and I think you're turning everybody vegan right now.
Okay. I'll take that.
Kind of questions. So I want to.
Okay, let's go. Yeah, I'm willing to answer all of them.
We got some questions here. First one we have is, what do you consider the most versatile vegetable to use when it comes to making dishes? I've been plant-based for 2 years now, and I have a hard time finding a versatile vegetable that I won't use for just 1 or 2 meals.
Okay.
Also, when you transition, how did you counteract the cravings that you had, if you had any?
Got you. All right. Thank you very much for your question, Sue. First and foremost, the most versatile vegetable on this planet is the mushroom. The mushroom, when I tell you, and let me tell you, Joe, when I used to hate mushrooms. I despised mushrooms, never wanted to eat them. So as I got into the lifestyle, I did my research, I learned You can make literally anything and everything with mushrooms. So I make, in fact, it's funny because right now I've got some mushrooms that are cooking in the oven. I've done everything from a quote unquote fried chicken replacement. I've made shredded pork, quote unquote, shredded chicken, literally mushrooms. You can do anything and everything with. So for anyone who's got questions as far as a versatile vegetable, you got to go to my Instagram page. You will see mushroom items like crazy. So mushrooms, first and foremost. And as far as cravings go, I really didn't have a lot of cravings when I made the transition. For me, it was probably more about how was I going to get creative in terms of the foods that I made. So it wasn't so much about the cravings. I was okay with the cravings. It was more about the diversity. I was like, how am I going to be diverse in terms of the foods that I eat? And once I got into the journey, quickly I realized, I was like, man, you've been missing out on all this good food. You've been tripping. That's what I told myself. I was like, yo, you've been tripping. You've been sitting back here, leaving all this good food out here for everybody else to eat. You ain't been eating it yourself, getting healthier. So I was like, yo, you've been tripping. So literally for me, I've opened up doors to any and everything that there is. So that's one of the best parts about my journey is the exploration of healthy food.
I love that. I love that. And by the way, we did share your Instagram page on the comments because I want to make sure they look, because they're not going to believe that it's I'm telling you. And the mushroom is so true. I love portobello, shiitake. I love everything.
Yes.
That's a good one. Okay, when you're going out with friends, pre-COVID, she said pre-COVID.
Okay.
How do you decide where to go?
Well, first and foremost, and I'd say I'm in a fortunate position because all of my friends knew I was vegan. So they were like, okay, so where you want to go, Marlon? And so they would typically ask me, where did I want to go? And I'm considerate. So I would say, all right, so let's look at some places where if you're looking to do something different, let's look at some places with variety of options. But I took it upon myself to say, let me find an incredible place that's got great vegan food. That way you guys can experience this love and joy that I'm experiencing. And when I tell you, I've had at least 4 or 5 restaurants that friends of mine had never frequented that weren't vegan that now say, this vegan food restaurant is my favorite restaurant.
Wow.
So what I would encourage you to do is have your friends explore and take them to places that have incredible vegan options and turn them on to incredible vegan food. That's what I do as far as whenever we go out to eat.
Okay, can you name some couple of restaurants if you don't mind?
Absolutely. So I have to tell you. So here,
a foodie friend of mine, she's a blogger.
Okay.
I'm gonna go check them out.
I got you. So as far as here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area, you've got Vegan Food House, which is, when I tell you incredible, they got everything from Cajun food to vegan fried shrimp, vegan fried shrimp, Joe.
Wait,
vegan fried shrimp, Joe. Vegan Food House. Vegan Food House.
Okay.
They have vegan fried shrimp. It will knock, Joe, when I tell you it's crazy. They've got double meat hamburgers. They've got fried buffalo cauliflower. They've got literally everything. So Vegan Food House is one of them. Then Tiki Loco, which is in Deep Ellum. Oh man, Tiki Loco, one of my favorite spots, not far from where I live. Tacos, smoothies, burgers, literally everything. Nuno's Tacos, which is.
Found them over the weekend.
Oh gosh, Nuno, his tacos. Like I said, his tacos. I mean, they'll floor you. I'm thinking about them right now. It's kind of got me.
Your mouth is salivating.
Yes. I started thinking, man, what's the last time I had Nuno's tacos? So, I mean, you've got them. You've got Bam's Vegan. He's usually set up.
Bam's Vegan.
Yeah, Bam's Vegan. Bam is incredible. Then you got Vegan Vibrations with Vegan Vani.
I'm eating the wrap like today.
Okay.
I went up yesterday.
Yeah.
Vibrations is one of my top favorites. I'm a little biased.
Yeah, Vegan Vibrations. I mean, they're incredible too. And so we've got so many new ones that have popped up now too. And also another great benefit is a lot of restaurants now have included vegan options in their menu. Yeah. So what I would tell you to do Even if you're going to some of your favorite places where they have all of the animal products, ask them, hey, do you have a vegan menu? Or what do you have as far as vegan options go? I'll tell you one that surprises people is Albernays, which Albernays, you know, very nice, you know, steakhouse. They've got a vegan menu. They've got a vegan menu. Exactly. I had their vegan, in fact, I was there probably 2 weeks ago. Okay. Incredible vegan menu. So what I would tell you to do is ask, say, hey, do you have a vegan menu? A lot of them do. You'll have some incredible vegan options that you can mix into your arsenal.
Awesome. Those are great picks, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. I love them. I love them.
All right, last two questions. Frozen veggies and fruit, good or bad? And the other one is kind of, you know, correlate to that. Do your veggies and vegetables have to be organic?
Okay, first off, as far as the frozen versus fresh, I prefer fresh first. I mean, if I can get fresh veggies, that's what I'm gonna do. I'm always gonna do fresh veggies. But if you can't get them fresh, the next best option is definitely frozen. Definitely wanna get them frozen. That way you can keep them longer, they'll still stay in good shape. So when it comes down to it, either one is gonna do you well. So if you're looking at either or, if the frozen work better for you as far as longevity goes, definitely get those frozen veggies. Now, as far as when you're looking at organic versus non-organic, I'm gonna get organic probably 95% of the time in terms of the veggies and the fruit that I get, just because in addition to eating those healthy items, I'm also looking at the soil that they're grown in. I'm looking at all of those little things, because remember, those plants that we're eating also need nutrients in order for them to live and be the best that they can be. You'll have that in an organic state. So the same thing that I look at as far as what I get and what I put into my body, I want my plants to live the same way. So for me, I want my plants to be as organic, as happy and healthy as possible. That way I can consume that and get that same energy and get those same vibes. So if it's available to you, more importantly, if it's at a good price and affordable, definitely get that organic option.
I love that. And I think that's great that you're letting people know, because, you know, like back in the day before I really started looking at organic versus traditional, I didn't know that organic difference because of chemicals, right? Beverly was just on right before you telling us about the chemicals that we're consuming. So eating vegetables that are grown that is not organic, all the extra chemicals and pesticides putting in your temple. Now, good point. If you're in a location where you can't get organic foods, it's better than not eating it at all, right? Obviously. So eat the veggies if you can just only get traditional veggies. But if you have an option to upgrade and it's at an affordable price point, get the organic option.
Absolutely.
Now,
absolutely.
Farmers market, this is my personal question. So I know that in New York and on the West Coast where I used to live, there's tons of markets. And right now in the Dallas Farmers Market, I think they're still closed. But do you prefer to get your vegetables from a Dallas market, like a farmer's market?
Absolutely, absolutely. And one thing that I've learned over time too, number one, I love to support, you know, local farmers, local businesses. So if I can do that, that's what I want to do first and foremost. But also, and there are so many little things that I've learned too that I love. Also, I learned that we want to eat foods that are grown and developed within the regions that we live. Why? Because of all of the elements as far as the atmosphere, whether it's the mold, the pollens in there, all of those things, the fruit, the veggies that we eat were made to withstand any and all of those things from an immune system standpoint that we could deal with. And so there have been doctors who have said, eat more of the foods that are actually grown and raised in your particular area, and you'll find that you'll end up feeling better and you'll be healthier for it. The farther away your food comes, the less healthier it's going to be for you. The closer that it is, the healthier it's going to be for you. So if you can, eat fruits and veggies that were grown within a close proximity. Absolutely.
That is a great point to end on. I did not know that with the food. I know that about honey, you know, like they say get local honey, but it will make sense to eat things that are local to you. I love that.
Absolutely. And also keep this in mind too when it comes to your foods. The farther that they travel, the less fresh they are.
Exactly.
So whenever you're getting it local, they may have picked that morning. So you're truly getting something that's picked off of the vine.
Absolutely. And that's what I love is like when I go to the market, like a Dallas farmer's market, when they were, you know, pre-COVID, I love knowing that literally came out, you know, like a day ago. Or
Yes.
That's awesome.
Yes.
It's been amazing as always. I had
Thank you.
Tuning in and just enjoying your energy. Everybody watching right now, make sure you guys follow him on Instagram. And if you have a VIP ticket, obviously, if you want to speak
I can't wait.
VIP experience, he's gonna, I think you're giving away how many coaching sessions?
I'm giving 3 45-minute consultations. So if you've got the VIP package, I can't wait to talk to you. I can't wait to go on this journey with you. It's not a you thing, it's a us thing. So if you got the VIP package, you and I are getting ready to go on a fantastic voyage. Know that.
Love it, love it. Thank you so much, Marlon. You're amazing.